A federal judge has halted an effort by the Trump administration to force states to comply with conditions tied to SNAP food benefits. 20 Democratic states sued over requirements surrounding gender ideology, immigration, and fair opportunities in sports for women and girls. The states argued the Agriculture Department threw unlawful roadblocks into the SNAP program, which was created by Congress and provides food benefits to millions of low-income families. CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson is here to answer some key constitutional questions about this case. So what are the powers of the executive branch in the context of what we're discussing here?
So in the context of what we're discussing, which is really spending federal funds, as we all know, it's Congress who has the power of the purse. So there are two really big constitutional questions in this case. But the first one that you asked me about, I think, is really a separation of powers issue. It's a horizontal powers issue, where if you think about how we spend money in our system, it's Congress who decides to appropriate the funds. Now, certainly the president has a role to play in deciding whether or not he's going to sign a budget and to try and make clear his funding priorities. But I think there is a serious question as to whether an executive agency could take money appropriated and then put these additional restrictions and additional strings on that money. This is a question of, does the executive branch have the power to do this as compared to Congress, who, again, it's Congress who decides to spend the money and decides what to spend it on. It's the executive branch that implements those funding decisions.
What is the definition of federalism?
So this is a great question. It's the second big question in this case. So the first, as we talked about, is really this kind of horizontal separation of powers issue. The second is whether or not the federal government, let's imagine it's the right branch of the federal government that's acting, that it is, in this case, I think Congress as opposed to the executive. There's a question when you, the federal government, say, states, here's some money. Now, in return for this money, do X. That can be a federalism concern, meaning a concern about trampling on states' rights. And specifically in this case, the argument that the states would make is that there's essentially a gun to their head, that they are forced into saying, okay, we'll comply with your policy agenda because we need this money for SNAP. We need this money for farmers. And that's really the federalism concern, and that's the vertical power concern in this case.
Why does this case matter? What are the broader implications?
The broader implications, I think, are exactly what we talk about in this segment. It's a who decides question. When it comes to federal funds going to states, who gets the power? We, in our system of government, have decided that the best decision is to disperse power. We came from a monarchy. We fear a concentration of power. And this case matters because we're talking about which branch has the power to act. Lindsay, we obviously talk a lot about, does the executive have the power to do X? And then secondly, does the federal government have the power to do this to the states? And this is a question that's been replicating not just during the Trump administration, but during other administrations as well.
Okay, Jessica Levinson, thank you as always.